Hey guys, it's Brett. Thanks for stopping by my channel. So today I wanted to talk about April TBR, despite the fact that we're already almost 2 weeks into April. I am very behind. But so to talk a little bit about what I'm currently reading and what I am hoping to read or what I have in my ever fluid TBR list. So the first thing is On the Savage Side by Tiffany McDaniel. This was actually on my March TBR and I didn't get to it. And I just didn't want to relegate it to the slush pile like I generally do if I don't get through everything on my list in a month, because I'd heard so much about this and I just thought if I don't attack this now, who knows when, and then I'll just, stew about it. So I'm about 100 pages in. It's extremely well written. I didn't read Tiffany McDaniel's previous book, Betty, which got amazing reviews, but it is, in fact, over on Instagram, I was doing this challenge, which is 12 books recommended by 12 people for this year, and somebody recommended Betty, and I have not got to it yet, but I absolutely will. This is about, loosely based on the Chillicothe, Ohio, Chillicothe 6. There were 6 women that were unsolved murders in Ohio. It's twin sisters who are growing up in the most desperate of circumstances. Their father has just died. Their mother and their aunt who lives with them are both drug addicts and prostitutes. So as you can imagine, this is hilarious. It is not. And it also has like literally every trigger warning imaginable attached to it. It's intense. So yeah, just to put that out there. That said, I think it's really, she's a great writer. I'm interested to see where this goes. But certainly it's a heavier read. The next book is also a little dark, but not quite as much as the previous one, which is Up with the Sun by Thomas Mallon or Thomas Mallon. I'm not sure. Did I just make him French or European? He first came to my attention because he wrote a book called Fellow Travelers that is being made into a series on Showtime with Jonathan Bailey and Matt Bomer. So I have not read that yet. Actually, because I was so enjoying this, I went into eBay and found a lot of 4 of his books, Fellow Travelers being one of them, so they'll be coming soon. His other books, he deals a lot of times with historical subjects, and he has a whole, it's either a 3 or 4 books that all deal with different presidencies, Nixon, Reagan, Bush Jr., and he writes kind of a fictionalized accounting of factual events. So those are all in that lot that I'm getting. So I think it sounds really interesting. But this book, he takes the true story of Dick Cowman, who was a very ambitious kind of cutthroat actor in the 40s and 50s, who was a Broadway guy, desperate to become a star at almost any price, any cost, who in the 80s he and his lover were brutally murdered. So the book jumps back and forth between the present, which is in the 80s, and this murder investigation, and in the past, his kind of pseudo rise. The past is kind of ripe with, the seedier side of both New York and Hollywood and the players involved there. And in the present, it takes the point of view of a pianist who plays in a lot of Broadway shows who becomes friends with Dick. So it's really interesting. I'm also doing this one on audio. I'm a little over 100 pages in this as well, but totally enjoying, so we'll see how this all plays out. The last book that I've just started, so really can't say much about it, which came out last week, is The People Who Report More Stress by Alejandro Varela. Alejandro Varela wrote The Town of Babylon, which I read earlier this year and absolutely loved it. I think he is, beyond being just a beautiful writer, I love the way his mind thinks. He deals many times and writes about kind of marginalized people, whether they're racially, immigrants or racial outsiders, so to speak, or sexuality. This is a series of short stories, which I've just started, but I've heard overall, this is an even better book than his first one. So really excited about this. And if you don't know him at all, definitely check him out. All right, moving on. A few more books. So when I was in the middle of my Luminaries read along, Eleanor Catton's new book was coming out and we were all very excited about it. I was one of those people. So Burnham Woods, I've seen this a lot on the socials. First of all, could we just take a moment to appreciate this beautiful Waterstones edition? Burnham Woods is set in a guerrilla gardening collective. And I say guerrilla, not like the ape, but Guerilla. Guerilla. I spelled it correctly. It sounds really interesting. I think it's going to be radically different than her previous book. Certainly it's much shorter. So this is one I'm definitely going to get to this month. Another book I'm hearing a lot about, I love this cover, is Brother and Sister Enter the Forest by Richard Mirabella. I'm going to read you this one. After years of severed communication, Justin appears on his sister's doorstep needing a place to stay. The home he's made for himself has collapsed, as has everything else in his life. When they were children, Willa played the role of her brother's protector, but now she's reluctant to let him in. Willa lives a carefully ordered life working as a nurse and making ornate dioramas in her spare time. As Justin tries to connect with the people she's closest to, her landlord, her boyfriend, their mother, she begins to feel exposed. Willa and Justin's relationship has always been strained, yet loving, frustrating, yet close. But it hits a new breaking point when Justin spirals out of control, unable to manage his sobriety and the sustained effects of a brain injury. Years earlier in high school, desperate to escape his home life and disapproving troubling mother, Justin falls into the hands of his first lover, a slightly older boy living on his own, who offers Justin some semblance of intimacy and refuge. When Justin's boyfriend commits a terrifying act of violence, the two flee on a doomed road trip, a journey that will damage Justin and change his and his family's life forever. I think it sounds really interesting. The feedback I've seen people giving this, really interesting. So yeah, that's that. This book came out today, as a matter of fact, which will be tomorrow or whenever after. Today is April 10th. So it came out today. My Father's Brain, Life in the Shadow of Alzheimer's by Sandeep Jauhar. Really interested in this one. An acclaimed physician of the author's affecting memoir of his father's dementia and his own inquiry into the fragility of the brain. I think I talked about this before, basically to say this has some interest for me in large part because there is a history of Alzheimer's and dementia in my family. So I'm very aware of that. And I find the whole thing terrifying, if I'm being perfectly honest. So this is going to be the next book for me when I finish those other two. I'm really interested to see what he has to say. All right, on the Lives of Puppets by T.J. Klune. I was a huge fan of The House in the Cerulean Sea. This is his kind of update or spin on the Pinocchio story. I kind of love the way T.J. Klune's mind works. I love these kind of pseudo-adult fairy tales that center around characters who are marginalized or different, and they're all, if this follows suit to his other things, it will certainly be a heartwarming and also a tearjerker, all of which I can be down with. Okay, so I'm going to read The Appeal. I talked about this when I was going through book mail a few weeks ago, because I think I had received the third book of Janice Hallett's third book, and I said I hadn't read any of them, and a lot of people came into my comments and said, you have to read The Appeal, it's so good, you have to read it, and the subsequent books are just as good, if not better. So I've heard you, I'm going to read The Appeal. I'm really excited about it. So don't have much to say beyond that, except yes to The Appeal. Another book I know I brought up in book mail before, which is Jacqueline Holland's The God of Endings. This is about a woman who is bequeathed eternal life. Basically, I think she's a vampire, and that's how she's working that angle. So, but I'm really excited about this, and thank you to Flatiron Books for the gifted copy. But I like a kind of a literary thriller, which is exactly what this is. And lastly in this group, another little nonfiction book, and probably one of my favorite covers, which is How Far the Light Reaches by Sabrina Imbler, A Life in 10 Sea Creatures. I would like to read you the inside of this. In their shimmering, otherworldly debut, Sabrina Imbler profiles 10 of the ocean's strangest creatures, drawing astonishing connections between their lives and ours, and illuminating wondrous models of survival, adaptation, identity, sex, and care on our faltering planet. Let me just look to... Oh, this is interesting. I thought this was potentially a photograph that had been altered, but it is an illustration by someone named Simon Band. Simon, you do good work. So I'm really excited to read this. For me, this seems right up my alley, especially with my obsession with octopus that started with Remarkably Bright Creatures and continued into that nonfiction book. The Life of an Octopus. I can't remember the name. Why am I blanking on it? But anyway, yes. So yes to this. Yes for anyone who's into the aquatic creatures. So that is my April in a nutshell. I have a few things on NetGalley I actually might try to get to as well. So we'll see. And of course, I always use this as a loose template because there always are certainly things that crop up or things that I say, I have to read this immediately because everybody else is reading it and I have terrible FOMO and it cannot be controlled. Also, there are so many books, huge, big books coming out in May, and I know in particular my NetGalley is so crammed up with stuff that I might try to knock one or two of those out, including Chang Gang All-Stars, including the No Byron Lane, including the new Stephen Rowley. All of those are coming out, and many of them are coming out on the same damn day. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope some of these titles are interesting to you as well, and if you've read any of them beyond The Appeal, please let me know in the comments below. All right, thanks, and I'll see you all soon.